Hi there. Thanks for showing up. My name is Amy McGlashan, and my title is Academic Initiatives at the Center for Careers and Internships. And part of what I do is oversee the Winter Term Internships for Credit process. My colleague Karen White out there, who you checked in with, is our internships coordinator. And I will formally introduce her when she pops in after in a minute, because you will hear from her. And I want to stress right up front, before we even dig into content, that when she sends out an email requesting things from you, it's really important that you pay attention. That just because you don't have the relationship with her that you might with me or one of our advisors, she's the one that keeps things moving and makes sure that we're fulfilling all of our obligations in regarding donor letters and things like that. And she's working really hard right now to get all of the postings up on Handshake for winter term. She takes care of that, working with our employers. So there's a lot that she does behind the scenes that's really important work. But at any rate, we'll dig in, and I apologize that at 4:30 I'm going to be talking at you for about an hour, but there will be Q&A. There's a lot of information to cover. Feel free to, in any of the slides, if it's not clear, to raise your hand, and I'll take a question then. If it's more particular, if it's a question more particular to your situation or something that can wait until the end because maybe I haven't gotten to it yet, then we will save time for Q&A. Yeah, so we'll just dig in. Has anyone done a winter term internship for credit before? I'm assuming not, but just out of curiosity. Okay. Have any of you gotten funding from us before for the summer? Okay. Only one, a couple of you. Okay. Because some of what we're going to cover is similar, but really different. And how many of you are sophomores? Okay, awesome. How many are juniors? And the rest of you seniors? So a nice mix. Okay, great. And if you're first years, you're not eligible, so you don't need to stay, but you're welcome to, but you are not eligible to apply for winter term internship for credit. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover what do we consider a winter term internship, what counts, or what kind of thing can you think about, eligibility, credit versus not, if you don't need it, what might be some of the pros and cons, and then we'll spend a lot more time on the application process because it's involved and detailed, and there's a reason why I'm going to prescribe the timeline we're going to discuss, and then a little bit about if you're looking, where you might look, because as you can imagine, for winter term, there are not many internships offered by most employers that are just for winter term, right? They're really molded for Middlebury students. So there's a batch that we curate and get posted for Handshake, but many, many, many students find their own internships. So we'll talk about how you might be able to do that. And then funding and what are the parameters around that, and eligibility, and then how else you might get help, okay? So just to give you a few visuals of what do we mean by a winter term internship. It can look like a number of things. It can look like this in a hospital. It can look like, well, we hope our Monterey campus will be able to offer internships as they do each year at the Center for Nonproliferation Studies. And usually that comes with funding that they provide. It can look like that, related to the arts, clearly. I don't even know what that is, but pretty detailed, technical, working together on a project, in a lab, outside doing film work, outside collaborating. I'm not even sure what many of these are. Doing a public presentation of some sort, working in a law office. That one that just got posted, that's with Judge Burroughs in Boston. So in other words, the point is that many things can count as a winter term internship. You can do a remote winter term internship. You may get stuck like the gentleman on the left, so you have to decide what you're up for, but the point is that yes, remote, hybrid, in-person, they all are eligible for credit. And here's what we define. So particularly for winter term, we're looking for high level exposure to work in an organization that's of interest to you. And mentoring is really an important component. So we want to be able to be assured that you're going to receive good mentorship, particularly for just a 1-month project, right? That it's an opportunity for you to develop new skills, knowledge, experience in the real world for a month, and to apply your liberal arts learning. And I'm going to be covering that in a minute. You are getting credit in winter term for the academic connections you make to your internship work. And we'll talk about how we do that. So that's a little more emphasis on that in winter term than there might be for summer internship, for example. It can be local, can be on campus. There will be several on campus posted. I think a few already, Karen, are posted from on campus ones? Yep. Okay. Or anywhere in the world. Lots of students use this as an opportunity to find one abroad, or if they're about to study abroad, to go a month early and try to do something, or someplace new, or all kinds of things. And as I said, it can be for credit or not credit, depending. And it is done in the place of a class for winter term. So that is the credit you're getting if you do an internship for credit. We give you a CRN number, and you register for it just like you would a class. All right? Any questions on that so far before we get any further? Okay. Here are the bottom line requirements. So basically 100 hours, 25 hours a week. This is the minimum. 25 hours a week over 4 weeks. If you have an employer that wants, you know what, I didn't even turn it off because I never thought someone would call me and my phone never rings. Sorry, God, figures. Your employer may want you to work over 25 hours a week, and that would be for you and them to negotiate, but the minimum that you need to do is 100 hours. And the dates should be for winter term, which is Monday, January 6th to Friday, January 31st. If your internship is going to go outside of those dates in any significant way, in other words, by more than a day or so, you need to get a hold of me and let's discuss it so that we've discussed it before I see the dates in your application. Because otherwise, I'm going to reach out to you after you apply and say, hey, what's up with the dates? So just reach out to me beforehand so we can make sure that it's going to still work out. But really, the most important thing is that that it's got the 100 hours. The only caveat to that is we can't go too much after January 31st because grades are going to be due the Monday that spring semester starts, and your faculty, your academic sponsor, which we'll talk about in a minute, is going to need time to review your work. We're going to need time to receive the evaluations, and it's only after all of that is received that the credit is approved. So you can't really go into February break for your internship because that'll delay that process. Must be unpaid. So if you have the option of getting a paid one and you don't need the credit, you might not want to apply for credit, but we'll again talk about that. On-site supervisor, so the mentoring piece I mentioned, so there does need to be an on-site supervisor. If you're doing a remote, obviously they're not going to be on-site, but someone who you're working with closely and who will be able to comment at the end of the term on the value of your work, on your contribution to the organization. You need to find an academic sponsor. So this is a Middlebury faculty who you're going to work with on what's going to be worthy of credit and who's going to be the one to evaluate that product for you. I'll go into details now. So, and I'll cover a little more in a minute, but you're not getting the credit for the internship itself. You're getting credit for the meta learning that'll happen around the internship, and that's what you're going to discuss with your academic sponsor. So it's got to be a Middlebury faculty person who agrees to work with you on that, and you'll see a slide in a minute that goes over the basic expectations. But for the most part, you're meeting with them to talk about what are your learning objectives for the internship, and therefore what's the deliverable that they expect. Usually it's either a daily or weekly journal, or a final paper. So it's not like, and maybe you get in touch with them once a week or so and check in with them on how it's going. So it's not a huge time, it doesn't take up a ton of time of either their time or your time, but it's definitely, that's the work that you're getting the credit for related to the internship. And then the third piece that we hope they can help you with is identifying 3 scholarly sources that you will cite, that you will reuse as part of whatever that deliverable is for your final product, if that makes sense. And we'll talk more about it. We have a reflection blog. Has anyone seen the Experiential Learning Lifecycle Hub? Anybody post on it? Some people who we funded before. So it's a reflection space. I'm not going to be showing it to you today, but where students post and post both a picture and just a reflection on how their internship is going, and then you respond to somebody else. It's actually, I don't know if you thought so, but it's a kind of cool space, and it's just for you all. No one else has access to it but students who are doing internships. So you have a chance to read about what other people are doing, or comment or reflect about what you're doing. Since reflection is an important part of experiential learning, we build that in. The final paper or product for your sponsor, and then we ask that you do a self-evaluation, and then your internship supervisor will be expected to do an evaluation. And then if we award you any funding, you'll also need to do a donor letter for us. Any questions on any of that? And we're going to cover in more detail, but yeah.
For the academic sponsor, does your sponsor have to be like within the discipline of which you're?
Great question. The question for those who didn't hear it is, does your academic sponsor need to be within the discipline of what your internship is about? It's not a requirement. They feel often more comfortable approving or working with you on something that they have some familiarity with, but many don't. It's also someone who you're comfortable working with. Often if you're, your first year seminar advisor might not have anything to do with it, but it might be somebody you've established a good connection to. And part of it depends on how technical. Like if you're a physics major, you might, and you're going to be doing something that's highly physicsy. I was going to say technical, but that's that esoteric, I'll say. Then it might serve you better to have someone. But it might be if your learning objectives are about how a certain organization is run and has less to do with the mission of the organization itself, like let's say it's an advocacy organization but you're wanting to learn about policy, not so much about the mission of the organization. So it might be less where you're, I'm trying to think of an example, where it might be less you're picking someone in environmental studies and more you're picking political science or something like that, if that helps. And if you have trouble finding someone, let me know. Yeah, does that answer your question? Yeah, so it's not a requirement, but it's certainly a good place to start. Yeah. Okay. So eligibility again, sophomores through super seniors. So first years and sophomore Febs have to take a class their first time on campus, as many of you probably remember. And then you are required to earn credit for at least 2 winter terms, and up to 2 of those can be an internship for credit. But the first one must be a class. And as it says here, it just shows up as a credit, not a grade. It doesn't count towards your major, it doesn't count towards distribution requirements, but it does count as a credit. Okay? So really quickly, how many of you have the luxury of deciding whether or not this is for credit? Just a couple of you. Okay, good. So this is worth going over. So as you can see from what I just described, there's some deliverables. There's some stuff you got to do for us and for your academic sponsor. So, or if you're getting offered to be paid by your employer, then you may not, if you don't need the credit, you may not consider, you don't have to do it. For international students, if they are, any international students here? Okay, 1. Okay. A couple of you. Obviously, there's some, twists with the curricular practical training requirement, so you might have to do it for credit and relate it to your major, but in some cases you don't. So if you don't need the credit, if you, as it says, it has to be unpaid, so if you want to get paid, here's the other thing, if you wanted to stay on campus for winter term, then you need to be doing it for credit. You can't stay on campus and do your own internship. That is an expectation, because you have to be enrolled. And if you're not doing it for credit, you're not enrolled, if that makes sense. So, but it's still a great experience, still something you can put on your resume, still great skill building, and you don't have to do the stuff for us. So those are the trade-offs. Any questions? Does that make sense? Yeah. And again, if you want to talk that through more, if you want to weigh the options, happy to chat with you more about that. Okay. As I mentioned, you could do it in person, hybrid, or on campus, or remote. And you can do a remote internship and live on campus if you have been and will be in college housing for fall and spring. So if, for those of you who might be watching the recording, if you're abroad now, you could come back to campus to do a remote internship on campus. That would be the only exception. But for the most part, you have to already have been here and be staying. You can't be going off to be abroad in the spring and such. Anyone thinking about doing that? Remote, but living on campus? Maybe. Okay, so you know it's an option. Okay, so the application process. So the first step we suggest that you do is get your resume approved by a CCI peer career advisor. Does anyone been in to see one yet this year? Or before, I'll say? Okay. So those are our students who have been trained to provide support and help with resumes, cover letters, searching through Handshake or whatever. I didn't post, but you could go to go/PCA or go to our website and look up student staff, and they've got our quick questions hours, which are not just at Kitchell House, but they are in By Hall, at the new Quantitative Center, they are at the Anderson Freeman Center, they are in the cafe, the sushi cafe, so all different hours, all different places. It might take more than one visit, but we strongly recommend that you just get that taken care of now while you're looking around for your internship. Don't wait to apply, because we're just going to hold up your application until you get it approved anyway. So just take care of it now. And your chances are you'll have better shot at certain internships because you've got a better resume. If you've gotten a resume approved, like say within the last year or so, then just update it. You don't need the approval. We already have you tagged, so you don't need to do that. Your next job, or at the same time, is to find your internship, and we'll talk about how you might do that if you don't know. How many of you already know what you might do? Okay, so about half of you. And you've got time, but don't wait. So find your internship. And then find your academic sponsor and get that all squared away, because you're going to need to talk about some of that in your personal statement that's part of your application. You're going to need your scholarly sources, and your learning objectives need to be part of that essay. So that's why these are all things you need to take care of first. And as it says, develop the plan with your academic sponsor around the when we say scholarly investigation of an issue or topic, that's just what are you aiming to learn beyond the work that you're going to do in the internship? And that's your learning objectives and your scholarly sources and your final product. And then if you're applying for funding, and we'll get into the details of that in a minute, you do need to justify in this application why you need the funding and what you're planning on using it for. Okay, and then submit through mid-apply, and there's absolutely no way we can accept this past December 2nd, because it takes time for us to approve at the other end, and the registrar's office and the curriculum committee. We're really doing this work on behalf of the faculty curriculum committee, and they're not meeting past the second week in December. So that's why this all needs to be done then. That is, by the way, the Monday after Thanksgiving. So I gave you that Monday, though, so instead of Sunday night, when you're traveling back, you at least get one extra day. I know, whatever. And we strongly recommend that you actually get it all done before Thanksgiving, which can be done, but you need to plug away. So you can see why we're having a conversation about it now on September 24th for a December 2nd deadline, because those are a lot of steps you got to go through, okay? And that's if you already know what you're going to do. So we'll get into some of the details. International students, I am not going to be the one to advise you on CPT or any of those things. Go to ISSS and make sure that you're following what they advise regarding what you need to do for based on your visa status. Okay. Most of you, if you're doing one here in the U.S., all of you, if you're doing one here in the U.S. or for a U.S. company, need to apply for CPT. It's whether or not in other places you might need to. For any of you, and let me go back one place here. Shoot, where was it? Well, I'll come back to it. Sorry. See where it says still have to apply international activity form. Anyone who is applying to do an internship abroad has to complete an international activity form. And you'll also need to do a travel registration. I think I cover that a little later. Okay, so very quickly, I already mentioned December 2nd is the final deadline for all application materials. And as it says, don't wait until the deadline to deal with some of this stuff, because it takes time to find the academic sponsor, it takes time to work with them on it, et cetera. What happens is when you submit your application, let's say you hit submit in mid-apply on December 2nd, immediately a link will get sent to your internship sponsor and to your internship supervisor and academic sponsor, asking them to complete a form. The internship supervisor is verifying the hours you're putting in and that you're doing what you say in your essay you're going to be doing. The academic sponsor is telling us what's the academic deliverable product that they're asking you to do. So we have that information. They have a week to fill that out. So again, that's why we don't want to wait and why you can't do it past December 2nd, because they need time to get that back to us so that when we can't approve your internship for credit until we get those back. Now, if you don't have all this done before November 4th through 6th, which is when winter term registration is, register for any class. Doesn't matter. I mean, obviously it matters if it's a maybe, but just make sure that you are scheduled to be enrolled is the idea. And then when you are approved for credit, let's say I send you a letter on November 12th that you're approved for credit, you will automatically be transferred into the CRN for the internship, okay? Because you've already gotten yourself enrolled. If you get the letter from me approving your credit before registration, then you will have the CRN number in that letter and you'll know what to do. Okay? Does that make sense? Pretty straightforward. Okay. Moving along. So I've already talked about these steps, so we'll just do this quickly. We are using Midapply, which, and the link is right there on our website. In it is a personal statement where there's a template that you can see, I'll show you in a minute, of what we're going to be asking you to address in that personal statement, the other information, you upload your resume, we're going to ask you to sign off on the internship agreement, and boom, that's it. Oh, and if you're applying for funding, the questions for the funding will be related, will be right in there. So it's all in one place, pretty easy, straightforward. And then, as I mentioned, the internship supervisor and your academic sponsor will then submit their forms, and then it comes to me and I process. I will show you the website. We won't go through it, but what I will say is almost anything you need to know or any question that may come up in this process is somewhere on the Winter Term Internships website. Go/WT Internships, I think. Is that what it says? Yeah. There is a whole set of FAQs at the bottom. Chances are your question will be somewhere in there and the answer to it will be in there. Links are in there to all the instructions. I've got copies of this, but there is a link to it there if you don't want to take a hard copy now, because it has the actual links in it. This is just a set of instructions. So I strongly encourage that if you have a question, to check there first. I am absolutely available to meet with or to reach out to by email. Has anyone already done that? I know I've gotten several emails from folks already. Okay. You may save yourself time and me time by looking on the website first. Just saying. Okay. So the complete instructions, including the essay prompt, including sample academic sources, it's all there. Okay. Just really quickly, there's the personal statement. As I mentioned, it's where you're going to work, what are you going to do, where is it located, what are your responsibilities, why do you want to do it, and what are your learning objectives? How does it connect to your academics? And it doesn't mean you can't do something that's not related to your academics. We're just asking you to be reflective about how you are taking your liberal arts learning and applying it in a different setting. So it's however you justify it. So to some extent, there can be a little bit of like, you can take liberties in what you share with us. We're really open. We just want to hear you put forth the logic. Does that make sense? And make those connections. We're not like saying, oh, no, it doesn't pass. You know, it is not about what fits and what doesn't fit. It's about trying to get you to do that thinking and being intentional about your education. Does that make sense? Okay. And then listing the 3 scholarly sources. And this, we have samples in there too, both about how we want to see them, but also it might give you some ideas of then how to look for that. Your internship sponsor might also have some ideas of some scholarly sources. But you could also probably just as easily do a Google search and then see what interesting titles might approach you. They don't have to be full books, they can be articles, they can be, you know, they don't have to be, I mean, there should be some that are scholarly, but they don't all have to be these heavy journal articles by any stretch. Just something that's informing your thinking, that's connecting your learning objectives to what you're going to be doing, all right? Any questions on any of that so far? Any questions on the application process? Yeah, and then. I would recommend that you pick chapters. Yeah, you are not expected, it is not a full course where you're expected to like be reading all the way through and spending as much time on homework as you are in your internship. That is not the idea. It is much more the idea of finding some sources out there that are providing some perspective, some background, some data, some foundation, something that grounds what you're doing and connects back to your academics. So we really do leave it up to you, and when we recommend that you work with your academic sponsor on that, you don't have to, but that's where we hope they can be helpful. A librarian might be helpful, but no, we are not expecting you to read books, full books. No. You are in this internship, we want you engaged in the internship. And that said, it's only 25 hours a week, so there will be some time to do a little bit of it. But yeah, no, we are not expecting it to feel like a course at all. Does that help? Yeah. Was there another question about the requirements somewhere? No, okay. Okay. This is, all right, let's see if I can redo this. Nope, not working. Sorry. Oh, sorry, it's advancing. That's all right, I'll come back to it. All I was saying, I was taking you to the website. And we don't need to do that. I may go to it later, but let me just see if we, okay. There's a whole page on winter term. I'll scroll down in a minute. This is just a screenshot of it. So where might you find one? So I'm going to show you in Handshake. There are some there now. Just do a search for winter term, and there's a whole list of maybe a dozen or so already in there now that are Middlebury specific. A few on campus, not any international yet, but definitely not all here in Middlebury. We're hoping to post English teaching in Costa Rica. There's working for that judge in Massachusetts. There's working for an art foundation in southern Vermont. That's where they are, right? I'm trying to think of a few others at the top of my head. So in other words, they're not going to be for everybody, but there will be a range. And I would also say Karen is working really hard at getting as many posted as possible. So if you don't see keep checking back. Because it might be, I mean, she just posted like a dozen yesterday and then a couple today. And so we really hope it's by like next week that there'll be more and that others will trickle in. And then you're certainly welcome to look beyond the ones that we post. As I said, we'll talk about some other ways to do it. Has anyone been on yet to see what's there? Okay. Anything for you there? Not yet? Not yet, maybe? Oh, Vermont Private Eye, are they coming?
I'm working on it. I'm
Okay.
contacting her and waiting for an answer.
Yeah,
Hoping she'll host.
yeah. So that was the Vermont Private Eye. That was a popular one last year. There's publishers. We've got a few publishing ones. Yeah. This is a screenshot of one that I took today. Right, there's working in South Africa on conflict transformation curriculum for the DIVE program. That's a summer consulting program that we fund. I think that 2 students can do that. There's policy related to climate work here in Vermont. So there's some stuff already posted. This is a snapshot of, I took that today, as I said. But people know how to do job search and Handshake? Okay, that's all I did was go to Handshake and entered winter term, as you can see. Okay. On our website, in Handshake also in the resources section, there are tips for finding an internship. Oh, it's also on the website, sorry. If you go to find an internship on our website, and there's tips for how to find one, whether it's networking with your family or your parents' friends, or searching. There are a few resources in the resources section of Handshake. There's, for example, one called Idealist. So if you're interested in working in the nonprofit social impact space, there's a whole bunch of organizations listed there. Even if they're not listing an internship, if there's an organization that's of interest to you, doesn't mean you can't reach out and propose to work for them for winter term. When they don't have to pay you and it's just for a month, you'd be surprised how many people are willing to work with you, especially if Middlebury has a reputation already there. Similarly, there's another resource called Going Global that's about international opportunities. So check those out. There's a list also in the resources section in Handshake of past internships that students have done, both summer and winter. And even if it says summer, you might still want to check it out because, again, then that means they've had a Middlebury intern and they might be willing to work with you to set up a winter term internship. That's, in fact, how we've gotten most of our winter term internships that we posted are people who hosted Middlebury interns for the summer and then said, ooh, I like these guys. I want more. And they agree to post it for winter term. So doesn't mean you can't go and do that on your own. Okay? Career community pages or just working with our advisors. They know better than I what interns in your interest area have done in previous winter terms that I might not be aware of and that may not have, should be on that spreadsheet, but that's another way to have the conversation. And then LinkedIn or MidConnect. Have anyone been on Mid to Mid? People know what that is? That's our alumni network. That doesn't mean you can reach out to any given alumni and say, hey, Can I do a winter term internship for you? But it does mean you might find some opportunities, and you can certainly start a conversation, and maybe they would have an opportunity. Maybe they would, students have definitely done it that way too. So, I mean, that is what they're there for, is for you to reach out to them in the career space. So it doesn't hurt to ask. All they can do is say no. But they might give you other people who they suggest if they can't host you, right? That's what networking is. So these are all, and then it just as it says, tell your friends, parents, talk to faculty. You never know where the connections may come from and where you may find a winter term internship. Don't limit yourself, and don't be shy. It's only a month. And then, as it says, and make an appointment with the CCI advisor in your area if you're stuck or if you want more ideas. Any questions on any of that? Does that all make sense? Okay. Funding. Unfortunately, for winter term, unlike for summer, our funding is really limited. And we can't even use it in the way we intended originally, which was to help replace lost wages. The demand is so great, I can't even guarantee that that's what we can fund. We have two types of funding for the most part. One is conflict transformation. So if you find an internship that's related to conflict transformation in some way, those, and we've used it to fund the Monterey and/or DC internships around nonproliferation studies, and doing conflict transformation curriculum, as I mentioned, for the DIVE program. We've also, another student did conflict transformation curriculum for the school abroad in France, although actually it was a summer one. But my point is, if you think that what you're doing fits the criteria, the definition, and in the website and in mid-apply, you'll see what we define for conflict transformation. Go ahead and make the argument. Can't hurt, right? It's only 6 grants that we can give out, but last year, one of the people who got one was working in a community mental health clinic in Chile, which, you know, had been under dictatorship and was helping people with who had been through the trauma of being oppressed. So he made a really great argument for how that was related to conflict transformation. So don't limit, you know, what you might consider. I'm open with the 6 grants that I have. The other set of funding is for students who are receiving some sort of financial aid. It could be one of our scholar programs like POSSE, Wiley Scholars, or just you're receiving some amount of financial aid. It's a grant, if you will, that we get from the student access grants. We have $30,000, so it's only my math. It is only 20 grants of $1,500. Did I say that right? Is that right? Yeah. That's 30,000, yeah, God. That we can award. It's not much, but it's something, and it does. We do prioritize students who have actual expenses. You're going to need to provide a budget. So if you're doing a remote one on campus, can't really justify it because you're still at least getting room and board. But if you're going someplace where you need to travel there, where you're going to need to pay rent and food or whatever, then that's what those are for. And I will say, it does not mean you can't ask if you really are going to lose wages. If there's a really good reason why you're going to need it even still on campus, I'm open to receiving it. It just won't be prioritized, even if you apply first. These are awarded on a first-come, first-served basis because they will get used. So that's another reason not to delay. And if you have a question, feel free to reach out to me if you're wondering whether or not this will qualify, or whether or not it would get consideration. Unlike our summer funding, you can apply even though you've gotten one in the past, although none of you have done one before, so that's irrelevant here. But you do need to be receiving credit. As I said, you probably shouldn't at least be living on campus, and you'll need to address your justification in the application. And as I mentioned, you'll need to do a donor letter in addition to your other paperwork. We're listing other funding that exists. Sometimes you can get it from CCE if it's cross-cultural. And there's the criteria there. Any questions on funding? Okay, I'm seeing some yawning, so I'm going to try to move quickly here. Where we are in time. Okay. These are just ways to help. Have people been into our office and seen an advisor before? Yeah, so most of you. If you haven't, it's okay. But we have advisors in each of those areas. So if there's someone there, and they're all of it, you can find them on Handshake. You can sign up for an appointment through Handshake to meet with any one of them, to get more ideas, to get support. They really all are great sources of help. And then, yeah, that covers that. And then really reach out to me just for specific questions around the winter term internship process. That's all I do. Not all I do, but related to this. Okay, we talked about drop-in hours, no appointment necessary. That's the whole idea. Okay, and they can be helpful too, because they can help you find some of these resources. They won't be as knowledgeable about what other students have done, but they can help you navigate the resources that we have available. They can show you how to use Mid2Mid, for example, to find alumni. They can show you how to do a search in some of those other areas. Okay, it's a really good group this year too. I mentioned the FAQs. I think we've covered all of this stuff already. Online resources, why is Robert Frost Cabins on there? That's really funny. Sorry. I was trying to help Devin from Dive find a place to stay while he was here during peak leaf season. That's really funny. Sorry about that. No, that is not our Winter Term Internship website. Those are the Robert Frost Cabins in Ripton. Anyway, I've covered all this already. How to Handshake for finding internships, for those resources I mentioned, for making an appointment, and then the website, really everything is on there. I'm happy to hand these out for those who want a hard copy. So there's a link to this on the website. The website kind of covers the overall process, and then in the FAQs. This is a very quick, what's the timeline look like? What are the steps, and what are the links to what you need? Obviously, you can't link in the hard copy, but you can download this from the website, but I'm happy to hand out copies if people want to have them out. And with that, I think I've covered pretty much everything. What questions? Anybody have questions? What haven't I covered?
Amy?
Yeah.
Just want to tell them how they received their winter term funding.
Yes.
They asked for that. You want me to talk?
Yeah, good idea.
Thanks, everybody.
I talked about you while you were not
Oh, you
here.
did,
And
okay.
so this is Karen.
Hi, I'm the one that's going to be tracking you all down can you hear me on this? Okay.
Yes.
For your paperwork at the end with the donor letter. But if you do apply for funding, the way that we issue our funding for winter term is by direct deposit. So that information is actually on mid-apply. So if you're thinking you're applying for the funding, please go ahead and register in Oracle. That's the system we use for direct deposit. Your funding will be issued as soon as Amy sends you an approval, and you will receive that funding early so that you have it prior to leaving because of the timing of the internships, because you're all going to go away for Christmas or the holidays, and we want to make sure you get your money and that there's no issues with that. So the sooner you do it, the better. And if you have any questions at all, you can reach out to me or the internships box, which I manage. So does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, great. And the most important thing is
There's a
get the
question back
resume
there.
approved.
Question back there.
Oh, back here, okay. I can't hear you, hang on.
So whenever we do apply for the funding, would that be after we get our, like our rejection or approval from the internship, or how is that?
Okay, so she's asking
Yep.
how about the funding. Do you want to explain the
Yeah.
process, Amy, about?
So in your mid-apply, when you see the link for mid-apply, which I will show you very quickly what that looks like. oops, okay, I'm going to pretend I'm an applicant. There you go, CCI, CCE, and hub application for, it says funding or credit when you click on it. There's your mid-apply application. When you start your application, and it's going to ask, as I said, for your resume and your information about your internship and about you, your citizenship, all the stuff we need to know, upload, and then not upload, but there's a place for you to enter your personal statement, and then it will ask you if you're applying for funding. If you click yes, then it will take you to the questions around funding. If you click no, then it'll skip logic and you won't have to answer those questions. And it will ask you which of the grants you're applying for. You can apply for both. You'll only get one if you get funded, but you can apply for both. But it's all right there in the mid-apply application. Okay? And then when you hear from me in terms of your credit approval, you will then also hear about the funding. One letter.
And Amy will be sending out those confirmation letters
Yep.
to you.
Yep.
So,
That's the process that may take a few weeks, though, so
Right.
that's why don't wait until and especially if you need funding, don't wait until the deadline, because it probably won't be left,
exactly.
okay?
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome. So I'm going to quickly go back to the website. Was that the easiest way to do that? Maybe, maybe not, whatever. There we go. So I just want to quickly scroll so you see. So here's the Winter Term Internships for Credit website. That's just the quick summary. Here's a very quick overview, but down below there are all the frequently asked questions. And in each of them are many of the same links that I just discussed. Even quick questions hours, how to get your resume approved, how to find an internship, the essay prompt for the application, the sample scholarly sources. There's the agreement form that we're going to ask you to sign off on in the application, so here's a copy of it so you can read it ahead of time, because it's 6 pages of details, but we do ask that you read it, because you are agreeing to do certain things, so, and then where you can submit your application. So really, all the FAQs, what to do if it's international, what to do, registration, all of it, it's all right there. Let me just quickly cover this. So if you're planning on going internationally, regardless of your citizenship, this is the form I was talking about. It's an international approval activity form. You're telling basically our Global Operations Committee where you're going and what travel advisory exists for that, so they know the level of risk and they can assess whether or not to approve. They have to approve any international travel. And then there's also, and this is the link to the travel advisory, so you can see how, what your current status is. And then you will also have to register your travel plans online before you go.
Amy, I just want to say
Yeah.
one thing.
And then I'll stop.
Even if you're going to your home country, you still need to do the form.
Yep, you do.
So it's so we know where you are if
Yeah.
there's an emergency.
Yep. Okay, any other questions? I've covered a lot. You can see how involved. Does it make you excited? Or just like going, oh my God, all that work?
It's not a lot of work.
Or are you all just thinking about how you're going to find your internship first? Yeah, okay. All right. Well, and I hope you have seen now there are lots of ways to both get help for it and lots of resources to help you. Anyone have a question about that? Okay. Yeah.
So for example, what if you already have a interview already? Do you still have to do the resume?
Uh-huh.
Everybody has to have
Yes.
an approved resume.
Yeah, it's just our way of making sure that people leave by the time they graduate with a good resume and that you've gotten the training. Because you're right, lots of students find their internship and then do the resume and they're like, why do I need to do it? And that's a good question. It's because we make you. Because we can.
And the best way.
Because we wouldn't feel right like approving, an internship, and especially if you're getting funding without making sure that and anyway, yes.
So just remember when you start your mid-apply application to make it go smoothly, make sure you have that approval from our office
Yeah.
before you start the application.
Yeah,
That just makes things go much easier. We're not emailing you back and forth.
yep. Any other questions related to finding an internship? Great. Well, I'm going to let y'all go. We'll end the recording, but I'm available for questions. I'll hang out a little bit afterwards. Karen will hang out. Thanks for coming and good luck. I'm looking forward to hearing what I love reading these. I really do. And hearing what everybody does. And I will tell you also, when we ask you to post on that Experiential Learning Lifecycle Hub, that reflection space, we do read those, and we love those. And we love reading your reflection essays at the end, because we see the growth. So I will say right up front, all that we ask you to do, it's not just getting written for the sake of completing a requirement. And it's not just for gratifying us, but it is gratifying. We really like seeing what you all end up doing, so.
And I just want to say one note. We collect photos, and on that Life Cycle Hub, we ask you all to upload a photo.
Yeah.
You come down to our office, you'll see tons of photos of our interns. So think about that when you're taking yourself, a photo of yourself, or
That's
someone that you're doing some great work with. You'll
That's how
leave
we
a
got 'em.
legacy sometimes in our office,
That's
which
right.
is really fun to look at, and it's fun for us, too.
Yep. Yeah. And then finally, for those who came in later, I brought, just because, for showing up, I brought some of our doggy stickers, if someone wants a sticker of one of the dogs of CCI.
We probably have
welcome
the
to come
most
get one.
dogs on the college
And
campus.
you're always welcome to come and see them.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming.
thank you.